I'm sorry, this event is invite only. Elite circle. That's what the email said. Short. Polite. Cold. I read it 3 times, hoping I misunderstood. This wasn't just any event. It was my own company's anniversary gala, the one I helped build from the ground up. But somehow, I wasn't elite enough to attend. My name was missing from the guest list. My access badge had been quietly deactivated. And when I asked HR about it, they smiled awkwardly and said, "It must be a mistake." But it wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. I could feel it in the silence. In the way conversation stopped when I walked into the room. In the way my manager suddenly avoided eye contact. For 5 years, I worked late nights. I trained new hires. I saved projects that were falling apart. And now? Now I was being erased. Why? Because I didn't fit their new image. Because I didn't come from the right school. Because I didn't socialize with the executives after work. Because I wasn't part of their inner circle. I wasn't elite enough. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the rejection email glowing on my screen. They thought I would quietly accept it. They thought I would feel small. They thought I would disappear. They were wrong. Because what they didn't know. I had seen something they hoped would stay buried. And if they wanted to talk about elite, then it was time to expose the truth. When I joined the company, it was nothing special. A small consulting firm trying to look bigger than it was. Big promises. Small results. I believed in the vision. That was my first mistake. I worked harder than anyone else. If a project was failing, it landed on my desk. If a client was angry, I calmed them down. If a presentation needed to impress investors, I built it from scratch. I wasn't flashy. I didn't brag. I didn't network at rooftop bars. I just delivered results. Slowly, the company grew. New offices. Bigger clients. Media mentions. And with growth came a new attitude. Suddenly, there was talk of brand image. Of elite positioning. They started hiring from prestigious universities only. Promoting people who looked good in photos instead of people who worked hard. And me? I became invisible. They used my strategies but credited someone else. They showcased others in meetings while I stayed behind the scenes. I told myself it didn't matter. As long as the work spoke for itself. But deep down, I felt something shifting. The company I helped build was becoming a club. And I wasn't on the guest list anymore. It started with small things. Private lunches. Exclusive Slack channels. Meetings I wasn't required to attend. The CEO, Daniel, began surrounding himself with a polished group of executives who all looked the same, talked the same, and agreed with everything he said. They called themselves the core circle. I called them the gatekeepers. One afternoon, I walked past a conference room and saw my entire project team inside, without me. My own presentation was on the screen. And someone else was delivering it. I stood there frozen, watching through the glass. That was the moment I understood. They didn't think I fit their new elite brand. I wasn't glamorous. I wasn't loud. I didn't come from money. I was just the worker. Useful, but not presentable. And when the gala invitation list came out, my name missing, it wasn't a mistake. It was a message. You're not one of us. But here's what they didn't know. In my years of handling crisis after crisis, I had access to everything: reports, emails, contracts. And I had noticed something strange. Something that didn't match the perfect image they were selling. The company was thriving publicly. But privately? Numbers didn't add up. I first noticed it while reviewing a financial summary. Revenue was being shifted between departments to make growth look stronger than it was. Not illegal, but misleading. Clients were promised exclusive strategies that were recycled from old projects. Investors were shown selective data, the best numbers, never the weak ones. It was smoke and mirrors. And the gala? It wasn't just a celebration. It was a stage show. A carefully crafted illusion for investors and media. The elite circle wasn't about excellence. It was about control. And by excluding me, they assumed I would stay silent. Because I needed the job. Because I wasn't connected. Because I wasn't elite. They underestimated one thing. I wasn't afraid of starting over. And I wasn't willing to let my work be stolen and my name erased. So I started preparing. Quietly. Carefully. I didn't rush. I didn't lash out. I documented everything. Emails showing my authorship of major projects. Draft files with timestamps. Internal reports proving data manipulation. I backed everything up. Then I reached out to someone outside the company, an investor relations advisor I had once worked with directly. Someone who valued transparency. I didn't accuse. I didn't threaten. I simply asked, "Are you aware of how performance metrics are being presented?" Within days, questions began circulating at the executive level. Not from me. From investors. Daniel looked tense. Meetings became urgent. The gala date approached like a ticking clock. And still, I remained off the guest list. They thought they had already won. But the truth has a strange way of surfacing, especially when the spotlight is brightest. The ballroom was filled with crystal lights and polished smiles. I wasn't supposed to be there. But as a shareholder, yes, I had quietly purchased stock years ago. I had every legal right to attend the investor session before the celebration. Daniel's face when he saw me? Priceless. He forced a smile. "I didn't know you'd be here." "I believe I qualify," I replied calmly. The investor Q&A began. And that's when it happened. One investor raised a hand and asked about revenue allocation discrepancies. Another questioned repeated strategy templates sold as exclusive innovations. The room shifted. Daniel stumbled through answers. Sweat forming at his temple. Then someone projected comparative internal drafts on the screen, showing my name on work credited to others. Silence. The elite circle looked at each other, unsure who to blame. The illusion cracked. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need revenge speeches. The truth was doing the work for me. And in that moment, I wasn't invisible anymore. I was undeniable. Within weeks, changes rolled through the company. Independent audits. Leadership restructuring. Public statements about renewed transparency. Daniel resigned. Quietly. The core circle dissolved just as quietly. Some executives left before they could be questioned. Investors thanked me privately for my integrity. And the irony? The same people who once excluded me now praised my professionalism. But here's the thing. I didn't feel victorious. I felt calm. Because this was never about humiliation. It was about fairness. They tried to define elite as status, image, and connections. But real elite behavior? It's integrity. It's competence. It's courage when it's easier to stay silent. And that night, I realized something powerful. You don't need their invitation to belong. Sometimes, you just need the truth. After everything settled, the board offered me a leadership role. A bigger title. Higher salary. Public recognition. Years ago, that's all I wanted. But something inside me had changed. I didn't want to fight for space in a room that once erased me. So I declined. Instead, I launched my own consulting firm. Transparent. Honest. Focused on real results, not image. Clients followed. Not because I was flashy, but because they trusted me. The same qualities that made me not elite enough became my greatest strengths. And as I signed my first contract under my own company name, I smiled. Not out of revenge. Out of peace. Here's what I learned. When someone tells you you're not elite enough, ask yourself who defined that word. Is it about money? Connections? Appearances? Or is it about values? They tried to shut me out to protect an illusion. But illusions can't survive exposure. And respect built on image alone eventually collapses. True reputation isn't about fitting in. It's about standing firm when others want you invisible. Today, I don't need their approval. I don't need their stage. Because I built my own. And sometimes, the strongest comeback isn't loud. It's walking into a room they tried to keep you out of. And leaving it on your own terms. That's not revenge. That's freedom. Looking back now, I sometimes replay that first moment, the email that said I wasn't elite enough. At the time, it felt like rejection. It felt like humiliation. It felt personal. But now? Now I see it differently. That message wasn't an ending. It was exposure. It revealed who they really were. It revealed what they truly valued. And most importantly, it revealed who I was becoming. For a while, I thought revenge meant proving them wrong in a dramatic way. Standing in front of them and watching them fall. But real justice didn't feel explosive. It felt steady. It felt quiet. It felt like control returning to my hands. The truth is, their betrayal forced me to grow. It forced me to detach my worth from their approval. I had tied my identity to that company. To their praise. To their recognition. When they tried to erase me, I panicked, because I thought without their validation, I was nothing. But I was wrong. My skills were real. My work was real. My value was real, even when they refused to acknowledge it. And here's something powerful I learned. When people build their power on exclusion, they are always afraid. Afraid of being exposed. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of someone who doesn't need their permission. They called themselves elite. But elite isn't about image. It's about character. Elite is choosing honesty when manipulation is easier. Elite is giving credit where it's due. Elite is standing alone if you have to, but standing in truth. If you're watching this and you've ever been told you don't belong, if someone has ever made you feel too small, too ordinary, too different, let me tell you something. Rejection is information. It shows you where you are not valued, so you can stop shrinking yourself to fit there. Sometimes the biggest glow-up isn't louder success. It's deeper self-respect. I don't hate them anymore. In a strange way, I'm grateful. Because if they hadn't tried to shut me out, I might have stayed comfortable. I might have stayed invisible. They tried to protect their reputation. And instead, they revealed their truth. And I revealed mine. Now, when I walk into rooms, I don't ask, do I belong here? I ask, does this room deserve me? That shift changed everything. So no. I wasn't elite enough for their circle. But I became strong enough to build my own. And that is a level they can never take away. If you like this story and want to hear more interesting stories, then please subscribe this channel and keep watch more stories.